Hey everybody, Professor Benlo with the third and final video. This will be going over the women's rights movement, the Chicano rights movement, and the Black Power movement topics. First of all, we need to get a little background information on the National Organization of Women to talk about the women's rights movement. National Organization of Women was formed in '66, inspired by the passage of the Civil Rights Act of '64, fighting for equality for women. The document you will be analyzing is the founding document for the National Organization of Women. Founding members of NOW include Dr. Pauli Murray and Betty Friedan. Murray was a very, very renowned Yale law professor and was also a member of the President's Committee on the Status of Women. Friedan was very famous for her 1963 book, The Feminine Mystique. The Feminine Mystique was very famous in the sense that basically Friedan interviewed women that she had graduated from Smith College with. And through this survey and through the interviews that she did, she discovered that women in general were not fulfilled as, stay-at-home moms and housewives. Basically, she found that most of the housewives she spoke to felt they were missing something, many yearning for a career. So she turned her findings into the famous groundbreaking book, Feminine Mystique. And I read The Feminine Mystique. I feel that every woman should read it. And I'm a very active person. I always read for like an hour or so before I go to bed. And I chose to read The Feminine Mystique while I was on break from school, in between semesters. And like I said, I'm always a very active person. Like Tuesdays when I should be chatting and I don't, it's in between semesters, like, oh my goodness, Anyway, so I'm reading this book and I come to this part where Friedan says, women that are stay-at-home wives and mothers take longer when their housework than women that work outside the household. And I remember just reading this and going to my husband, oh, and he looked at me like, what's wrong? And I said, I can't believe it. I know I've been taking longer with my housework since I've been off on a break. So it's really interesting. One main flaw with her Feminine Mystique is that it was mainly geared towards white middle-class women. So that's the importance of the women's rights movement. The Chicano rights movement. To understand this document, you need to get a background of Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers. Cesar Chavez was a Latino American rights activist. He was born in Yuma, Arizona in 1927. He learned about injustice at a very young age when his father was swindled out of land that his family had been living on, and he was swindled by unscrupulous whites. The Chavez family moved to California. Cesar was banned from speaking Spanish in school and was very, very, very much the victim of prejudice. After completing 8th grade, he became a migrant farm worker to support his family, particularly since his father was hurt in an accident. 1962, Chavez, along with Dolores Huerta, formed the United Farm Workers. The main purpose of this organization, which is still around today, is to fight for the rights of migrant workers. Members of the UFW went on strike to protest treatment by California table grape growers and lettuce growers. 1968, Chavez engaged in a 25-day hunger strike, and he was visited by Senator Robert F. Kennedy in a show of support during that strike. Okay, the Black Power movement is the last topic that you can go over. Basically, what you got to understand is there was a split in the civil rights movement. There were those that still followed Dr. King and his passive resistance, nonviolent methods. And then there was another faction saying, you know what, we got to be more aggressive. We've gone down this road of passive resistance long enough and it has not really worked. Okay, so one end of the spectrum, again, was King's followers who were continuing passive resistance. The other felt that they needed more aggressive to achieve rights. Black Panthers was a big part of the Black Power movement. It was a group formed in 1966 by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. They fought for African American rights, particularly against police brutality. Okay, that is an explanation of the last three topics. Again, dive into this, everybody, and do not hesitate to ask me any questions that you may have.